grand afternoon. Some beautiful buildings that you'll see in the background here, and True Brit, make Albion great again. Why some need me to be dumb, wrong and stupid. A bit more detail, a bit more policy information in regards to ARC, Albion Renaissance Coalition. I'm walking down, as you can see in the background, there are some beautiful, I'm at a part of the city that has got lots of students that have appeared over the last few years in it, and I don't know if you might see a bit further back down the road, there's lots of, is it HEB, to let signs. There's a few for sale signs as well. I know we're coming up towards the end of the academic year, student year, end of the academic year, but we're still in March, and a lot of these to let, there are more to let than usual at this time. They're usually all gone, or you know, and they're all, you know, sort of full occupancy. I don't know what it is like at down the south, towards the south end of the city, or the over by Derby Road, accommodations like. I'm not coming up to 3 here, city lettings to let. I don't know if it's a whole building or just some rooms, or they've just been recently refurbished, 2-3 beds. I'll see if I can't flip the screen, but you'll see this from there, I think. They're lovely buildings. So, and what used to be, is it Square Dance? No, it's not Square Dance Studios. That place there, Network House, used to do a lot of the film and was it post-production stuff for what's that place called again? Central Television. Network House. They used to do a lot of stuff for them. Anyway, I prattle on. But interestingly, that's one of the things about some of the policies that I've mentioned already, or policy initiatives, or some of the changes that I would like to see, or some of the things that need to be under consideration in terms of immigration, finance, education, arts and culture. I forgot what I was saying then. I think I'm going to go down this hill so you can see the cenotaph building obelisk that is going to appear behind me. I'm just walking past it now. I forgot what I was going to say completely. Walk down this hill. Policy. I was going to mention something important. Oh, that's right. I was going to link some of the policies and policy ideas that I have, link them to what's actually going on in the rest of the world, but also linking them to not so much executive orders, but definitely outstanding laws, legislation, treaties, if you will. So a lot of what it is that I've been talking about in terms of immigration, etc., and some of the policies are linked to GESARA and GESARA law. Let me get my hanky out, nose is running. It's also linked to UNDRIP, which many organisations, particularly those that have been funded by USAID, UKAID, as part of the propaganda to extol the virtues of the countries that are creating the aid, or that are sending the aid to their various NGOs across the globe. You know, these NGOs are there to promote the ideology, if you like, or the sentiments, or the culture, or the philosophy of, in this instance, USAID and UKAID. They're forwarding an agenda and trying to influence other nations into their way of thinking. So one of the big things about USAID and UKAID, for me, that has been an influencer and have been promoting this idea, is the LGBTQ plus MAP. MAP is minor attracted persons, commonly known as nonces and paedophiles and all that rest. This is what they're promoting. This is what they're pushing as a part of the DEI agenda, because that's what it's led to. You know, women having to compete with men in their own fucking sports. It's ridiculous, and we're pushing this. You know, we like the idea of men. I don't want to talk about it. Done with all that bullshit. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you can't go and dress up in women's clothes as a man, but that's not what being a true Brit's about. You know, there are supposed to be particular circumstances under which men dress up as women. I don't think there's ever a reason for that. Even if for entertainment purposes, I'm not too sure. I don't find it appealing, but it's become a bit of a ritual.
Not tennis ball, no.
So just trying to negotiate a ball. Yeah. Anyway, where was I? Done with that blood clot, fucking, you know, as being in some sort of normalcy, promoting it as normal, making it normal to be able to have sex with children, that giving the children the idea that they are capable of making decisions about their sexuality, about fucking anything actually, as a child, when it should be the adults that are taking responsibility for their children. I've just come out of a supervision. I'm very disturbed by this supervision. Not so much a supervision, but where this particular therapist seems to be working. You know, there are these organisations that are popping up all over the place that are supposed to be providing support to the nation's most vulnerable children and families. And what I'm hearing more and more is that the owners of these newly created organisations that are delivering these services, quote unquote, I forgot to ask about a question actually. There's a man called that I've heard of today. Apparently, he's a multi-millionaire. He's got loads of dentists all over the fucking shop. He's got car showrooms. He's got something else, and he's just recently moved into the area of providing childcare services. So he's buying up lots of property to and recruiting staff. This is about the second or third wave of this kind of activity. You know, particularly since it seems to me local authorities have not kept their responsibilities in terms of providing these services to the community. They've privatised them all. So, you know, CAMS, as an example, used to be a service within, it was a mixture of actually social care and part funded by the NHS. Now, NHS England is very different to the NHS that I grew up with, as an example, when I was a child, and you know, up until about the 90s actually. It was all of those health services, if you like, came under the Department of Health. Now, the Department of Health, I've just realised this myself, with the Department of Health deciding that it wants to dissolve the NHS, or NHS England anyway. NHS Scotland is still doing its own thing, and NHS Wales is still doing its own thing. But it quite clearly tells you that the government had absolved its responsibilities or privatised the NHS, gave it over. And actually, and they've probably been doing this since 2012, and maybe a little bit before. I think it's well before that, actually, because the NHS England was set up, I think it was kicking around in 1998, actually, with the idea of the Community Care Act. I think that's all part of it. It's all part of the privatisation of health. And I think the last thing to go was mental health services, which, and I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, it's on Ransom Road, and I can't remember what it's called. It was the first private company that I knew that was involved in mental health care. So, psychiatric units, psychiatric facilities, they were, or they had come under the forensic mental health became part of the prison estate, because the psychiatric services, the acute, like Rampton, Mapley Hospital in Nottingham, those acute psychiatric wards have slowly become privatised, or they're in facilities that are run basically by the prison service, and they recruit in psychiatrists, nurses, CPNs, and so on. That's the way it seems to me. And now that the shit's gone tits up, particularly with the mental health patients or people not taking their meds, there's a whole monitoring system that is failing, and people aren't getting the treatment that they need, and have become so emotionally, relationally, psychologically and spiritually distressed that they end up committing murders or causing harm, injury and loss to the general public. Now, they are quite rare instances, but they are disturbing nonetheless, particularly when the state is supposed to be taking responsibility, or has some responsibility, has an obligation to the public to, again, look after, to care for the nation's most vulnerable. So, at the moment, what we're dealing with is a combination of the state wanting to engage more in the lives of people, and at the same time, but not wanting to fund it out of the state's revenue raising departments, like the Department of Health. They're not wanting to, they're wanting these services to be delivered within the private sector. I say, get the government out of the lives of the individual, full stop, get out. You're not fucking fit for purpose. You've been taking our money through taxes. God has committed to a national health service that we were promised was going to provide care from cradle to grave. You've made millions out of it. Well, there's been billions spent on it every fucking year, and the services have got worse and worse and worse. You've recruited loads of consultants and fucking God knows what, and not done anything at the practitioner end, at the clinical end, in a way that meets the needs of the population, which you have created, out of which has been created a population that is emotionally, relationally, psychologically and spiritually, and probably all the other lees, bereft, bankrupt and traumatized. And it's not by accident. Some of this stuff has been done deliberately, as we're finding out now, like the pandemic. That's not by accident. It's deliberately done, and therefore you have to say and can see that the impact of that on the mental health of the nation is apparent and clear. Across this way, it's apparent and clear that the trauma, particularly around the children, is obvious. We've locked children down, tried to vaccinate them, we've terrorised them, as well as their parents. But some of those parents, some of those adults, were aware of the terror that they were going to commit upon their own children and other people's children in the name of healthcare. Knew full well. And you've been keeping that bullshit going for as long as you've been keeping that bullshit, and continue to do so, and keeping us distracted by an immigration policy that we're spending so much money on, that we're not able to heal and help those people that are most vulnerable to the trauma that's been created.